Well, hello everybody. I can't see you right now, but I'm very excited to be here. Waiting for my PowerPoint to come up. When my husband, Steve Gutstein, and I first heard about autism, it was over 35 years ago. I know that because I just had a mother contact me 2 days ago, and she said, "I saw you 35 years ago." So at that time, it was rare, not as rare as DIRC 1A, but it was rare. The incidence of autism in the United States, I don't know worldwide, the incidence was 1 in 10,000. And so people had never heard of autism, and there was no RDI. But we got interested because my husband, Steve Gutstein, at that time was at Texas Children's Hospital. And if any of you know Texas Children's Hospital, hello, Carol and Guy, I know you're there. As you know, it has, there are people from all over the world who come in, and in coming in, they bring in children who are so complicated they can't figure out what to do with them where they live. There was this group of children that started parading into Texas Children's Hospital, and they were taken to the speech language department because that was the place where they thought they belonged, because they didn't have language for the most part, or if they had language, they weren't communicating. Steve had taken one course in college many years ago, and somebody had mentioned autism. Remember, the incidence was 1 in 10,000. So he figured out what was going on, and that was where we got started. We were very excited to be thinking about this population. So, I'm sorry, my computer password? Yeah, okay. Hold on for just a minute. Okay, we're busy working on this. Okay. So anyway, thank God Umair is here. Anyway, we didn't know what to do, and really nobody else knew what to do either. But we ran across some research, and the research really, oh my goodness, I think we're getting it. And the research wasn't really telling us much about what autism was or what to do with it. In fact, what it was saying is that there were some adults who had language, had gone to college, they didn't have jobs, they didn't have relationships, and they weren't living independently. So we decided that was where we would start. We would start with where we wanted to end up. So rather than looking at what these children couldn't do, we began to pursue where children were in their families, and to look at family systems, say, how do children become independent, eventually have jobs, and communicate? That kind of thing is what we began to look at. Oh. Can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Oh, they can see the PowerPoint. Okay, Umair, I think, let me just make sure I have control of it.
Can you put in the presenter mode? All the way in the bottom of the screen, right next to the Zoom bar. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't think that's what I was trying to share with you. Okay. So we wanted to ask this question, how do people, how do you and I, how did
To
we get
press.
to the point we are?
She needs to check.
How do we figure out, how do we figure out how to use our brains, and where do we go from there? It was actually a very, very confusing, because there really wasn't. Carol, are you helping here? Are
Yeah,
you?
I just the right now you need to be in presenter mode because we can see the sidebar. We want to see the middle picture big.
Oh, okay.
So is there a button to press to do that? Do you know?
Right, the button that choose right.
Does it say?
That
Yeah, press where you are now. Hit that. You hit just click now on that brown place.
Oh, the round
Wherever your
place.
mouse
the
click.
bottom of the screen where your mouse is.
Yeah, where your mouse is right now, click that.
Umair, do you see what she's talking about?
Yeah, so that it's in presenter mode or you're viewing the whole, so we can view it one slide at a time.
Are you seeing a slide right now?
We see that, but we also see all of the slides on the side too. And we'd like to see just one at a time.
Oh, I kind of need to see those slides on the side, Carol.
Oh, she needs to see. Okay.
Okay. Can you make
But
it?
I can't see the slides on the side now. Yeah. I'm not ready for that video yet either, but it sounds like it's fine. Okay. Carol, can you see?
Maybe I can make here.
You can, yeah, we work with this?
Yeah.
This is fine. Thanks.
Okay. So Umair, I want to go up to the picture of Stephen. See that? Oh, now I can't see. Okay, there's something. There we go.
That's
Now I can't see the audience, Umair. I don't know where. Is there a way for me to at least see the audience, or is that not going to be available? It doesn't matter. You can do it.
yes. You can see the video, but like I can tell you exactly where is in your screen, but there's a little window in your screen where the videos are.
Okay, but now I can't see. Now I can't see the PowerPoint. Yeah, if you could just kind of move that over a little bit. I think I can at least see the PowerPoint to be able to talk.
You will control your own screen. I cannot control yours.
Right, I know. Umair, why don't I just go ahead with the PowerPoint? Is that okay, audience?
Yes.
Okay. You can hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, stay on, and Umair, stay there in case I run into a problem. Okay, so I'm right here. So Steve and I are the founders of this program, and I'm going to rush through this a little bit because I do want to get to the point where I think it's going to make the most sense to you. In trying to figure out how the human mind develops, we ran across a book by a woman named Barbara Rogoff, and it was called Apprenticeship Thinking. She traveled around the world and she said, virtually worldwide, everybody does it the same way. Parents enter into this guiding relationship intuitively with their children, and that's what grows the human brain. Well, in looking at children and parents with autism, we realized that the parents could get their children to do things, and the children had a loving relationship with their parent. But what was missing was this piece she referred to. I think it was the guiding relationship or the mindful guiding relationship. So we knew that that was where we had to get started, because if we took things out of order, out of context, we weren't going to have the generalization that we wanted, which was going to lead to the kinds of things that were going to make employment possible, living independently, relationships, kind of thing. So go down to the next. I guess maybe I have control of my screen now. So this is what we found out from the Canada Board of Employability Skills. I don't know why we went to Canada, but we did. Anyway, they were saying that in the 21st century, employers were going to be wanting to be looking at an ability to communicate, think and solve problems, adapt, learn continuously, work with others, plan, analyze, and monitor. The thing about that first one, communication, is that communication is actually built on experience sharing. And children are fully communicating before they ever have language. And so that was the piece that we could see was missing. At that point, we had a one-way mirror, and we would ask parents to go in and just play with their child. And we could see that the parents knew what they were doing. But the piece that we needed to add to this, which at that point we actually didn't know how to do, was to restore that guiding relationship, which had been taken from them by the autism. So if you look here at autism, you can see a list of things that talk about autism. And then if you can look at independence over here, you can see that these match up. What the children with autism could not do was what employers were looking for in the century that we're in now. So remember, this is 35 years ago. We were only dreaming about being in this century that we're in. So problem solving, flexibility, teamwork, relationship building, analysis and appraisal, perspective taking, self-awareness, ongoing growth and development, uncertainty management, creativity and motivation. Then in autism, we had these things that they were unable to do. So that was where we started, not with where the children were struggling now, but how do we go back and help the parents help their children become independent? And that was our focus from the very beginning, not what a child can't do at the age of 4 or 14, or we do see young adults, and I saw a man 62 years old, not what they can't do now, but how do we get them where they need to be? So I'm going to play a video, and this is the only video where we have to hear the sound. But this is a video that was made by a young woman named Rachel. I did not work with her, and I actually never met her. But she was a very shy young woman, and it was very hard to, to get her going socially or with anything else. But she worked with one of our consultants, and when she got into high school, she had this course in videography, and she said, that's what I want to do. And what I love about it, she owns who she is. She also owns who she's become. And I'm going to play this video for you. And if you can't hear the sound, somebody jump in and tell me.
No sound.
I'm sorry? Can you hear the sound? I can't hear you. Can you hear the sound?
No sound. No, we cannot.
Okay. I think I'm going to just skip this because I'm afraid that if I try to go back and work with the system too much to get the sound, it's going to take too much time. So I'm going to skip this video. And what? Yeah, but you can't. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, this is her talking. So, okay. So anyway, so this is how RDI is. Why autism? Because we could see that there was this thing that was occurring worldwide that nobody had started thinking about, and we also wanted to think about it. The other thing about this was that we realized the developmental differences were what we should be focusing on and what everybody else should be focusing on. And as we were looking through the literature, we didn't really find anything that said if a child is developmentally not doing these things, this is what you do to get them into the guiding relationship. People had a lot of ideas about teaching certain skills, but this is what they weren't able to do. So because my husband and I are psychologists, we're licensed to practice in the state of Texas. Our training had to do with family systems. And we knew that whatever we did, we weren't going to do anything weird or anything that didn't make sense. We were going to honor families and we were going to honor development. And so we did two things. Steve went, and he just he loves to read research. He was reading all of the research there was. I, on the other hand, was taking my video camera to the park, and imagine this. I was at the park saying to parents, is it okay if I videotape your children? Sure, go ahead. I'd go to church and I would say, is it okay if I video the kids in the sun? Yeah, go ahead. Imagine now I would be in jail if I were asking that kind of thing. But when we pulled those two things together, we would begin to understand the trajectory that we wanted to use and how we wanted to address this. So the other thing that we became very conscious of was that you and I and all of us are driven, motivated to take on our own learning when we feel competent, when we feel competent to figure out a challenge. So if we're into a regulatory pattern and we're doing something and we create a tiny challenge, a challenge that the child has not been taught, but the child can figure out, recognizing that, wait, something just changed here. But I'm smart. I can figure this out. I know what to do. That we have now developed the motivation for a child to take on his own learning. And so we have never used external rewards. We've always counted on that internal reward that the child begins to feel, I'm competent, I know what to do. Of course, young children are going to using the words competent. In fact, I don't think anybody ever used the word I'm competent. But you can see that those shoulders go back and that light go on and the figuring out of a problem that they can solve for themselves. So where did it all start? Well, I think it started in the Garden of Eden. And I used to have a map of Africa that I showed, but I don't have that anymore. I am going to show you now. I'm going to show you Carol and Theo. Okay, Carol, you look great in this. I'm sure you put on your makeup. But anyway, when we started with Theo, Carol and I, we were just noticing where he was and asking the question, where do we get started? I think the important question for all of us to always ask is not what can't this person do, but where do I start? And so we were very careful about where we got started because we wanted to make sure that every step of the way, Theo saw himself as a competent person who could figure things out. Now, this is not exactly where we got started, but what I noticed was that when Theo was engaged with his mother, he didn't seem to know exactly what the expression was that he was making. So Carol and Theo got in front of a mirror and they started making faces. The reason we did this was because Theo would automatically look at himself and his mother and he would begin to mirror her facial expression. So I'm not going to show you all of this, but I'm going to show you part of it. It's one of my favorite things. And I just thought that the way Carol set it up was genius. I saw it for the first time. I was like, oh my God, this is just such a wonderful thing to do. So let's see. Okay, here we go. You don't really need to sound for this.
Oh, indeed. It's hard to get it to stay at the beginning. Oh, but we'll get it back. Let's take time to make feel like.
I think you and Hugh should reenact this here.
Okay, there were some noises being made and there are a few things being said. But the reason I wanted to show you this is that there was an impulsivity in Theo's presentation. And even if he enjoyed what he's doing, he would just kind of leave. So we needed to think about how do we help him figure out to stay rather than having to bring him back. So going back to what RDI is, relationship development intervention, and we have changed our name and are kind of changing it legally right now to relationship-based dynamic intelligence. This is a parent-based approach targeting autism remediation. And when we talk about targeting remediation, we don't believe autism goes away. We don't believe ADHD goes away, but we do believe that our brains are such magnificent organs that they can figure out how to be in a relationship, have a job, be flexible, and all of those things, even with the autism still there. So it's based on the leading findings from researchers. If you want to read the research, Peter Monday, Sigmund Quinn, Dawson Rogers, Shani Ballman, Tomasello, Juice, Nicho, Peter, Jessica Hobson, Helen, Sharman, and Baron Cohen. So those are the people that we were reading, and these are the people that helped us really understand what are the complexities of autism. And I think a lot of times when we think about autism, we think about the complications. Complications are sure, of course, that is complicated, but complications tend to lead us down. If I do this, I'll see that. And what we believe is that autism is complex, that it's layered, and that there are lots of times when we're trying to figure out what to do, and we don't even understand that some of the complexities are there, but how to address them. So what we do is we become really good observers, and our parents become good observers as well. So a minor shift here. And I'm going to show you this next video. And what you'll see in this next video is that, oops, not yet. I'm going to go back to this one. So the reason Theo left was because the door was right there. Carol just switched places with him. This is what I mean about being a good observer. She just switched places with him, and he stayed the whole time. She wasn't saying, look at me, do what I do. He became an apprentice to her. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for children becoming apprenticeships to their parents. Now, I'm going to go down here and let's fast forward a few years, okay? Where he was impulsive and leaving, she's been working with him, all kinds of things. But this is their office, and he is doing the filing. And I want you to see how clearly he's thinking about what he's doing, how organized he is, and how focused he is. Let's take a look here. Okay, it goes on. And I love that it goes on because you can see the focus and how he's organized. You can also see that he's thinking. It isn't like this is lined up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me put them down. They're already ordered. He has to think about alphabetical order where these things go. And that's what we're talking about. How does this incredible thing that we call our human mind, I think, get developed? You can see that that's happening in him. So what we feel is that independence as an end goal occurs when a child becomes a good apprentice to the parent, is motivated to take on their own learning, and is doing things from a sense of competence. Remediation, reaching one's potential. And I often ask people, so what do you think your child's potential is? And I had a group exercise today, but we won't be able to do it now. But people, will have different answers for the child's potential. Sometimes it's limiting, sometimes it's expansive. But the point is, we don't know. And I think it's good that we don't know, because that keeps us in there creating more and more things for the child to do, where the motivation is increased, where the brain is growing, and where the child is using his own competence to figure things out. One of the things we always have to do is reduce obstacles. And typically we don't know what the obstacles are when we begin, but once we have begun to work with a child and a family, we may begin to see, as the system, as child calms down, that there are obstacles that need to be addressed by another professional. I mean, one example of that was a little boy that was really so involved and so active, nobody realized he was having seizures. Well, when we realized he was having seizures, we got him to a neurologist so we could begin to address the seizures. So obstacles are things that need to be addressed by somebody else. But we create challenges, and we create these challenges to build the motivation and the competence. So what we're always looking at is, how is the child actively looking at the parents? And this is really important. Seeing the world through his parents' eyes. What we know about autism very early on, typically children who are not dealing with autism look at their parents, they follow where their parents are looking, and they begin to see the world through their parents' eyes, and then they pull all that together and they see the world through their. So we want our children to do that because we know that that's how they take on their own learning. We know that's where motivation comes from. So these are our steps to independent thinking. First of all, there's the readiness, and the parents. I would say to all of you, address your own needs. Get your support system in place. Are there grandparents who can help you? What about the siblings? We don't want any child in the family to feel like the child with the problem got all the attention. We want everybody in this family to be important, and we want the parents' marriage to be important as well. So engagement, parents begin the process of building the students' motivation to engage in order to create experiences of joint engagement, shared enjoyment. Next, we have growth seeking. And so this is in a hierarchical order. Parents learn how to construct experiences that will activate the child's growth seeking drive and develop the guiding relationship. So it takes some time to get this guiding relationship 100% in place. Not only that, when your child starts out at 2 and becomes a teenager, that guiding relationship is still there, but it has to look different. My mother passed away at the age of almost 104. I was still in a guiding relationship with her, but we weren't playing peekaboo. I was accessing what she knew about life in order to help me think about it. So we also have to realize that parents need to change over time too. The dynamic intelligence foundations, the guiding relationship develops, parents and students begin to build the foundation of dynamic intelligence, and then the student begins to gradually take ownership of their own mental resources, and then self-guiding. So now I've seen the world through the eyes of my parents. I know how to think about things. Now I'm able to be my own guide, and I'm able to do the mental work autonomously. So we're always looking at how all of this leads to an autonomous sense with self. So yeah, I'm not going to do that. Okay. I'm going to be able to stop there, and I'm actually going to close the PowerPoint. Umair, help me with that. Close the PowerPoint. Stop sharing. Okay. It was kind of rushed. I think there were some things that I would have liked to talk about all day. I mean, I would have loved to talk about those 2 videos of Carl and Theo because they're just so fabulous. I mean, I went from there to having everybody do things like that because I just thought it was such a good idea. One of the things that Carol, from the very beginning, was always saying and working on was that there was a place at the table for Theo. Wherever she was, he could be there too. And so we could see that in volunteering at the zoo, in being in a theater dance program, Theo was there. And I love that Theo has that sense of the world that he has a sense of himself, and that he is figuring out things on his own. I love that video of him filing, looking at filing, and it became increasingly complicated. So it started out one way, but it became increasingly complicated. and he was able to take that on. So I am free now for questions if you have some. And I just want to apologize. First, Omer, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I apologize that it took us so long.
Precious. You want to share your site?
My website.
I would love to hear from the parents here because I know Theo's got a diagnosis when at 12, and then and we were 18 when I started working with Dr. Sheely. But I had read, you can see that yellow book on the bookshelf behind her, the RDI book. And that's really where I started my RDI training, was that I read that book. And then I decided that I needed more help, not just an hour alone in therapy calls. And I like the idea. What language is that?
Polish, but this is what it looks like.
Yeah, so I wanted more, and this seemed to be the way to do it because it's a family-based model. But I think a lot of people here might want to talk about, since Theo was already verbal when we started working with you and have a lot of skills, what can people do here? And also, if there's not an RDI therapist in their town, what can they do?
You know, Carol, I'm glad you brought that up. And there was something I was planning to share and I didn't. When Theo is like the friendliest guy I ever met, and he loves, I loves sharing information and talking about things. But what I realized was that there was that impulsivity that we showed with him walking out the door. What I realized was that there was a different way to help Theo begin to think. So I would pull up my chat and I would type something like, "Hi, Theo." And then it created space. And there would sometimes be a space of 5 or 10 seconds. He'd say, "Hi, Dr. Sheely." And what we began to do as we were working on communication and the nonverbal things that are so important to us, what we began to do was began to have these conversations where not only was I moving him along conversationally, he was taking things from what I was typing and he was asking me questions about it. So I only say that what I wouldn't recommend that any of you ever do that. But I also wanted to point out that we have a lot of resources sometimes that we don't take advantage of or think of. And this was one that has just worked really beautifully with Theo. The other thing is that we decided that I would meet Theo at the park. And so Carol taught him how to take Uber by himself. He takes Uber to the park. He meets me, and I'm always there a half hour early because I'm so nervous about it. But I meet him there, and we walk around the park, and we talk, and then we go into Betsy's Cafe, and then he brings out his cell phone. He calls Uber by himself, and Uber picks him up. Is that fabulous or what? To me, it's fabulous. Are there any questions?
Are there any things that you feel like that you are having with your kids that you want to talk about?
So my son, who's just left the room, he's 22 and he's quite independent. And he has two older sisters, which are like two mothers extra. He gets whether he likes it or not. We find like the biggest challenge, I think, is he's got a wonderful relationship with his family and friends, like close ones, but transferring that out into the public and the real world, we see the struggle and we see the sadness in him sometimes when he really does want to be a part of something. And you mentioned at one point just giving time. we taught Luke to say, give me a minute, because sometimes it just takes a bit for them to, you know, figure out what they want to say. And then he's got such a great personality and he's funny, and anybody who gets him, you know, he's very interesting. But in the general public, things happen quickly. His peers talk fast and he can't interrupt. And you feel like that is the hardest part, is the relationships outside that he really wants to create. And right now, with his own money, he's hired a dating coach. And that's his big, is trying to date.
That was breaking up. Could you tell me if there was a question? And I
Any question about that?
I mean, somebody closer. You can come up closer to the screen. Maybe I can hear better.
So, yeah. So I guess, so she's talking about, Luke, her son, who is 22, has is close to his family, but has trouble in the real world. It's so fast. And they taught him to say, wait a minute, or give me a minute. And now he, with his own money, has hired a dating coach. And any strategies for that?
Well, I don't know. I can give you a direction, but I actually can't tell you what to do because I don't know. I don't know your son. I would say that I've seen this before, and what we actually what the way to think about it is you want to think about a regulatory pattern that begins with something, I think, physical. I prefer that. And that regulatory pattern goes back and forth between something that's verbal, maybe language, maybe not language. But the reason we are conversational and we have this sense about how to wait and how to respond is because of those little games we played like peekaboo. You can't play peekaboo with, with an adult, with a young adult. But what you can do is you can think about ways to kind of withhold how you're feeling about something and look away and then look back and give some facial expressions that begin to say, what do you want to say now? So the whole thing about communication, I think, is very hard. One of our consultants has written 2 books based on RDI. So this is like a cheat sheet for RDI. Declarative Language Handbook by Linda Murphy. She's an RDI consultant. And the other book she wrote was Co-Regulation Handbook by Linda Murphy as well. And the thing about these 2 books, they break complexity down into doable things. And typically, when you look at her book, you say, well, you know what? I see what I want. I see what's not working. Let me start way back here and figure out how to address that apprenticeship at that age, at that level with someone who's the age of my son. So I also, Carol, you have my Calendly link. And so if you can give people my Calendly link, I would be happy to talk in more depth with people.
Okay, I'll put that in the WhatsApp link, and that'll be really useful. You mentioned declarative language, and I don't think everybody else knows about that. That's something that we found really helpful too. Could you talk to people, that's especially the people who, there's a lot of people here, the kids have little or no language, and how that works.
I'm sorry, Carol, you were breaking up. What did you say they have?
So a lot of our community have little or no language.
Oh, yes.
So how does declarative language in the properties work for that?
Yeah, I I think it's probably one of my favorite things to think about. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. I'm working right now with a young man who's 25, no language. And so when that kind of thing is happening, you just want to get him talking. You want him to be saying things. But the first thing that you have to engage, I don't care who it is, I don't care if he's 62 or 25 or 4, you have to have these experience sharing moments. And those experience sharing moments are times when you actually connect. And in the beginning, you connect non-verbally. And I'm going to describe something quickly, but I hope you can get the idea. I mean, mom, young man's 26 years old, they're sitting in the car. And the reason they're in the car is because he can't just walk away. They're in their car and she's got lemonade. She takes a sip and she passes it to him. He takes a sip and he passes it back. Then she holds it and he's a little confused, which is what we want to see. And he looks at her and she smiles and hands it back. This goes on for a while. Then she takes it and she says, Mama's drink. And she hands it to him and she says, John's drink. He hands it back and for a while she says, Mama's drink. He puts his hands over his face and he looks out the window like this. And he comes back and he puts his hands over his eyes and he says, she had to go home and turn up the sound. He was saying, Mama, John. And he handed the drink to her and he said, Mama. And then he took it back and he said, John. Now, you can see how this experience sharing got to him and how involved he was in taking on his own learning. So I use that as an example of starting very, very simple, starting with a point where the person can feel competent and figure out how to take on their own learning and figure things out for themselves. I could do a whole presentation on him and where he is now. But this is about where did he get started.
I can see there. So is there anybody else that's you?
Okay. So what do you do? I've had parents say to me that they just end up yelling at their that they well, you're at the point that you need to get them to do something or stop doing something, and the usual ways aren't working, rewards aren't working. What do you do with that?
Well, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And I also know that as a psychologist, I understand that whole reward system, what you reward and what you don't reward. But I think that there is a downside to that. And if you're rewarding the stopping of impulsivity, or if you're rewarding what you want to encourage to happen, that becomes very dependent upon you. And what we're trying to build is we're trying to build a child. I say child, but I work with young adults, so I don't mean child. And my kids are 44 years old, so, I call them children too. So, but what we want is we want them to have the ownership of either stopping the impulsivity or doing something that we want to see them do. That takes time, and it means that you work up to that, and you work up to it in ways where they begin to have ownership of that whole process and begin to take it on for themselves. Like this guy that I was telling you about. We couldn't have, we actually could not have tried to get him to stop some of the things that we wanted him to stop by using language because he didn't have it. But what we found was that as he got into those co-regulatory patterns, he was self-regulating, he was beginning to understand his own confusion. And I'm a fan of confusion because we all reference when we're confused. And that's what you'll begin to see. You'll begin to see that, like, I don't know what's going on here. And looking to the parents to help figure out what's going on. And then a nonverbal communication. It's what you're talking about is very hard. I personally have not had success with rewards or the withholding of rewards in terms of generalization. Carol, was that the right? I mean, am I talking about the right thing? Because you're breaking up when here. I thought that's what you were asking.
Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
The one thing, what is declaratory language, and how is it different than what people usually do when they're asking their kids questions to try to teach them things?
Oh, how asking questions like the Socratic method?
Right. Well, what's the difference between that and?
Yeah, we all love that, don't we? um, there's a different kind of language to use, and it's not that hard to learn, but it takes the pressure off. If you think about it, and if you've ever been in a situation where someone peppered you with questions, you know how awful that feels. It's like, stop it. And what we have found is that when we slow everything down and we help the person take time to think and give a person that all the time they need to think, that we began to have a relationship that gets us where we want to go. So declarative language, which Carol can practice with you because she's a queen of it, but declarative language is, I would say, what you always want to do. I do it with my grandchildren. They're just typically mischievous kids. I do it with my own daughters who are grown because it works. Try it with your husband and wife. You'd be surprised. It works with them too. But basically, what you're saying, what you do is instead of asking a question, you make a statement. For example, if I were to say to Carol, "Oh, I had a great lunch today." That's a declarative. And she might look at me like, "Oh, that's nice. Why are you telling me about your lunch today?" But she also, once she's kind of recovered, she might say, "Oh, what'd you have?" And I would say, um, "Oh, I had, I had mashed potatoes." You know, I don't know if you even like mashed potatoes. Now, I could have said to her, "Do you like mashed potatoes?" But I chose to do something different. I said, "You know, I don't know if you like mashed potatoes." And so she's free to answer me or not answer me. And that ability to make a choice not to answer is very powerful. And if she didn't answer me, I'd be okay with that.
And I find that it opens up, because if you ask me, do you like mashed potatoes? I would just say yes or no. but you say, I don't know, if you like, it makes me want to be more expansive mind. So I might say, oh, I have great mashed potatoes at this restaurant, or I like mashed potatoes with gravy, or
Yeah.
I find when I do this with you, it opens up our conversations more.
Yeah. And then she says, oh, I like that. I'm like with gravy. And I say, you know what? My mom used to make mashed potatoes with brown gravy. I loved her mashed potatoes. Never could make it. So it does, as Carol said, it does open it up so that you can begin to have a conversation. But I mean, I am really okay if there's no response. But that's what we're able to do because Theo can type and he can he can type in my chat. What we're beginning to do with him right now is I use that kind of language, and then he says something back and says. And the other day I was saying that I'm going to be going to New Mexico, and he said to me, "You're going to," in our chat. He said, "You're going to you're going to walk on the mountains," and I said, "I am." And then he said, "You'll miss me when you're gone." I said, "I will." And it's true, I will miss him when I'm gone. But it leads that declarative language. And if you don't use a lot of it, the declarative language helps the person find what they want to say and respond however they want to respond. And so keep what you say short, use declarative language, and Linda Murphy explains that beautifully. I think she explains it better than I do, and I do not get any royalties from her book. She did it all on her own. Wow, I just want to say something. I know our time's almost up. It's been my honor to be here today. I've been following what you all are doing, and the growth of Dirk 1A worldwide. And so you're in on the beginning of that. And I know there's a lot of research going on because of the things that you're pushing. So I'm really honored to speak with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Sheely.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, so that wraps up our morning sessions of our morning conference. So right now, what we're going to do is